Welcome to In Our Town, Conversations with Springfieldians Making a Difference. I'm your host, Tom Carlson, publisher of the Springfield Daily Citizen. If you'd like to comment on this episode, our email is inourtown@sgfcitizen.org. We'd love to hear from you. If you've ever been disappointed when you wanted to get a book from the library and it wasn't available, today's podcast guest, Dr. Ed Walton, helped solve that problem. He was on the board for Mobius, which is the interlibrary loan program that vastly increased the availability of books for library patrons. With decades of library experience, he worked both at university levels and in public libraries. For a library director, the job here in Springfield is a dream job. Annie Bush served in that capacity for 23 years, and recently retired Regina Cooper had a 15-year run. Here with me today is Dr. Ed Walton, and he's going to tell us what is on the drawing board for the Springfield-Greene County Library System. Dr. Walton, welcome to In Our Town.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, that's great. Now, is it Dr. Walton or Ed or Edward?
Well, Dr. Walton is appropriate, but I prefer to be called Ed.
Okay. Well, that works for me too.
Good.
Well, as I said in my introduction, this is a job that the past directors really seemed to enjoy. Annie Bush served for 23 years. Regina Cooper just for 15 years. Not just for 15 years. She served until she was ready to retire. What's attractive about this job? Why do you think people seem to love it?
You know, I've been working in libraries for a long time, so 45 years, in fact, and I really enjoy helping people. So I think what attracts people to this particular position is you get to help people, and the Springfield-Greene County Library District has a very high reputation of meeting our customers' needs, our constituents' needs, and has a very good reputation within the community of supporting the community and engaging the community. So it's a position that I just have really thought long about and wanted it.
Well, and you're from this area. You served at Southwest Baptist University, I believe. Right?
Yes, that's correct. I was there for 20 years.
And then from there, where did you go?
Well, I've been in libraries, like I said, 45 years. So 20 years at Southwest Baptist. I had already been in libraries for 20 years before that. So I spent 10 years at Dallas Public Library in Dallas, Texas, and then spent about 10 years in some corporate libraries before I took the position at Southwest Baptist. So I was at Southwest Baptist for 20 years and then went to Northwest Missouri State University, and I was there for 2.5 years.
Well, it's kind of nice to get back to the Ozarks, wasn't it?
It is, very much.
So I did a little research preparing for the interview today. I didn't realize what a big operation the library is. My goodness, it's got a budget of $19 million a year.
That's correct.
And how many employees and branches?
We have 10 branches and about 230 employees.
I wouldn't expect you to know the exact number, but how many people take advantage of the library each year?
Wow, I really don't know that number off the top of my head. I've been given so many facts and figures over the last 8 weeks that I've been there at the...
Well, I was at downtown Rotary a few weeks ago. If memory served, it was well over 100,000.
Yeah, it's well more than that, yes.
Yeah, so I was kind of wondering, I'm sure people from all kinds of backgrounds and so forth take advantage of library services. But if you were going to compress it to the profile of a typical patron to library, would it be an old person like me that likes to hang out and read the newspaper, or who's using it?
Well, we have a broad spectrum of users. So we have, yes, old people like us who come in and use the library. When I say use the library, they come in and look for a space to sit and read and enjoy a quiet environment. We also have a significant number of families who use the library. So mothers with young children who are coming in looking for resources to entertain their children and to educate their children, especially before they go into school. But as they enter into school, they come back to the library and use the resources to help supplement what the schools provide.
I can't think of anything better for a young person's preparation for eventual adulthood is learning to love to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just expands your horizons.
It does. So let me tell you my perspective on reading.
Yeah, please do.
As I was growing up, I had a very difficult time learning to read.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So when I was in the third grade, my third grade teacher actually said, English teacher said, I don't think you're ever going to grasp English. And so it was one of those things where it challenged me throughout my educational process until I graduated high school and started on my postgraduate degrees. And that's whenever I really learned English and learned how to read a book, how to read for content, and learn from materials rather than just trying to absorb whatever the teacher wanted me to read.
Was that sort of a self-learning program on your part? Or?
No. Whenever I started on my master's degree, that's whenever I really started to realize if I want to learn something, I have to be the one that is involved in the process and not just relying on other people to tell me what to read.
Oh, I see.
And then whenever I started through the doctoral program, you have to do so much reading in the doctoral program. You have to learn how to assimilate information, organize information, and put it into methods that you can retrieve it.
So what made you decide to go into library science?
Oh, wow, that's a long story.
Well, we don't have forever.
We don't have forever. I actually I had a friend when I was 18 years old. I had a friend that said, hey, do you want a job? And I said, well, yeah, I'm graduating from high school, so yes, I need a job. And he said, well, I need somebody to come and help me shelve books at a library. Would you like a job at the library? And that's my introduction to libraries.
Oh, I see.
I went to Dallas Public Library with a friend and applied for a job to sell books.
This was the days of the Dewey Decimal System.
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh, yeah. And so I spent my first year in libraries. That's all I did was I shelved books. My boss told me one day, she said, I think you shelve about 20,000 books a week.
No kidding.
Yeah.
My gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So that was my introduction to libraries. And after that introduction, I just moved up into libraries and enjoyed really the passion of helping people find and use information to help themselves mature and grow and learn. So,
you mentioned that. I read something somewhere, and I doubt it's correct, but maybe there's some truth to it, that most people the stuff that most people want to read are how-to books, how to do this, how to do that. Is that true?
No, it's a broad spectrum. There are some people who the only time they will read something is when they're trying to learn about something that they're doing.
Uh-huh.
Other people enjoy reading just for the sake of reading and being led off into somebody else's world of imagination. So it's a broad spectrum. There's not a real simple answer to that.
Well, tell us, folks here in Springfield-Greene County are pretty proud of our library. But maybe tell us a couple things about it that the average person maybe wouldn't know.
Well, probably one of the biggest things is the library is a place. So we have a lot of places for people to come in and sit down and enjoy just being in a quiet environment and being able to interact with the information that they find in the library. So I think that's one thing that not a lot of folks know.
Yeah.
Our community rooms are used heavily. And when I say heavily, they're almost engaged 24/7. The minute we open the door until we close the door of all of our libraries, people are coming in and using our meeting spaces.
Well, I'm sure they have to schedule that.
Oh, absolutely. And in advance, several days to a couple of weeks in advance to guarantee that you would get a space.
And that introduces a challenge for the library, because, at least in my mind, because it's a library for everybody.
That's right.
And there's from time to time there are discussions about books that some people feel are inappropriate, or maybe some controversial person wants to take advantage of some of your meeting rooms, and other people would be offended by that. But you're a public institution. How do you work through that?
Yeah. It is a challenge, and it's not a challenge just for our library, it's for libraries across the nation. So it's a big issue. Here's the concept or the idea behind it. There are competing ideologies in our culture, and sometimes those ideologies clash with one another. And it's not about the library. It's about the ideas that people hold that are personal to them, their moral values, their wishes, desires, and wants, and they conflict. We're not here as a library to endorse any ideology. We're here to provide space for people to express their ideologies and a space for them to learn about ideologies. And when I say ideologies, I mean a broad spectrum of ideas about how I ought to live or how I ought not to live. All of those things are cultural issues that the culture is struggling with. But unfortunately, the library is in the crosshairs of that interaction between those competing ideologies, because everybody wants to say, my ideas are correct and yours are incorrect. So the library gets pushed to say, I agree with this idea or I disagree with that idea. And the libraries, that's not our role. Our role is not to endorse or engage or approve somebody's idea. Our role is to provide them a space to present their ideas to others and have a dialogue about that idea.
So let me drill down with that a little bit with you. I'm thinking through on that issue. Without being too inflammatory, let's just say there's a particular ideology that the vast majority of the people in a particular community are supportive of. And there's a counter ideology that's diametrically opposed with that particular ideology. No institution has unlimited resources, right? So the library has to decide which books to buy and how many books to buy. So you have an issue like that. Let's just say, for purposes of this question, 70% of the people in the community are supportive of the ideology on this side, and 30% are supportive on the other side. When it comes to buying books and resources and stuff, because 70% are one way, do you buy 70% of the materials that are supportive of that and 30%, or do you try to do a 50-50 approach? How do you work through that?
Yeah, what we try to do is to buy materials that presents all sides of an issue, not just one ideological perspective, but all perspectives on that topic. It's not a percentage base. It's, do we have enough information on this topic to actually inform somebody with enough information to make an informed decision for themselves? We're not here to convince people.
So it's not consumer-driven, essentially.
It's not consumer-driven.
Okay.
It is learning-driven. We're providing information that gives people the opportunity to learn their own perspective and other people's perspective on a topic. And so we want to provide information that is broad in its spectrum, not just simply this person's perspective or this ideological side's perspective, but the other side's perspective is too, so that everyone can have an opportunity to learn about the entire issue from multiple perspectives and make their own decision. We're not here to make a decision for you.
How do you judge your own performance and convince yourself or satisfy yourself that you're being fair? I mean, we all have our own built-in biases and prejudices.
Probably the best way to determine whether we're being fair is if somebody comes in and complains about something.
Okay.
Okay? I don't like that. Good. Then we bought something that helped you to learn something. Okay? Because you don't like it. We want to, when I say we want to get a broad spectrum of information, Their publishers have certain bents. So you go to this publisher and they'll have a conservative bent. You go to this publisher and they'll have a liberal bent. So if we really want to get opposing viewpoints on something, we can look at the publisher and say, if we're going to get information on this topic and we want conservative information, it's going to come from these publishers. If we want liberal ideologies, we'll get from these publishers, and that gives us a broad spectrum across the divide.
Well, one of the things, I'm a big book reader, and I want to get into electronic books with you a little later, but I've been pretty satisfied when I want to get a book from the library that is not on the shelves here in Greene County, that through the Interlibrary Loan Program, it's retrievable. And I know that you were very involved in expanding Mobius, so you'll have to tell us what that stands for. But tell us about Mobius and how that program works.
So Mobius is a consortium that developed about 30 years ago, and it started out in academic libraries. And the intent of Mobius stands for linking libraries together.
Okay.
Linking Missouri libraries together. That was its original intent, and it's moved beyond Missouri. So we have libraries in other states around us that are also involved in the consortia. The Mobius original plan was to create a resource sharing network that allowed us to quickly move books back and forth across the state between institutions. There were a little over 80 academic institutions involved in Mobius when it started. Today, there's 86 institutions, and that includes public libraries like Springfield-Greene County. And the intent is to be able to provide access to all of the collections of the members' libraries somewhere in the state within 3 days.
Oh, is it that quick? My gosh.
3 days is the desired turnaround time.
That's pretty amazing. You guys using FedEx or getting it from Maryville to Cape Girardeau?
Well, we have a courier system that goes to all of those locations.
That's impressive.
Yes, it is. Mobius continues to struggle with just maintaining that level of connectivity because system changes that have taken place within Mobius. So right now, Mobius is offline for us, and the intent was that we'd be back up in October. Right now, we're seeing some technical glitches in the system that's not allowing us to get Mobius back up and running by October.
But what about the long-term future for Mobius? Does that look good?
Yes, it's very healthy. It's just we're dealing with a particular software issue.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The just developing that a little bit further. Do you find that some libraries specialize in certain kinds of collections?
Yes, they do. So if you move into an academic library, you will find that the disciplines that they teach in their institution are the kinds of resources they're buying and providing to their students that are available for us to borrow. In public libraries, many public libraries have unique collections that are local. And so, for instance, we have a local history collection that is Ozark area materials that's not going to be available across the state. So people will request those materials from us. Most of the time, those materials are not loaned, so we have to make copies of things and send it instead of sending the actual content itself.
Well, I'm one of those dinosaurs that when I wanted to research something in the newspaper archives, I got out the big roll of microfilm with the hand crank and looked for things. But nowadays, a lot of that's been digitized.
Yes, it has. There are still special collections, and we have several special collections that we are in the process of moving from microfilm to digital format. So not everything is available digitally, but a significant amount of information is digital now, and not, you don't have to go back and pull out that reel and look on those reels.
So I'm making this up, of course, but let's say I'm interested in the Pony Express, and of course, originated out of St. Joseph, Missouri, and I'm sure there's a lot of materials about that up there.
Mm-hmm.
If it's been digitized, can I access that from Springfield, Missouri?
Certainly. It depends on the library or the institution, because it may not be a library. It may be a museum. It might be an archive. So it could be any number of types of institutions. And it really depends on what they have, what system that they have used to allow access to the content. So sometimes you may find that the content's digitized, but it's only locally available. Sometimes you'll find the content's digitized and it's freely available to anybody on the internet. So there's a real spectrum between those two extremes.
I'm a lifelong resident of the Springfield area, and and I'm a former newspaper reporter, so I like to dig into old newspapers. Mm-hmm. And I have an annual subscription to newspapers.com. I'm sure you're familiar with it, and it's got stuff from newspapers all across the country. But if somebody just wants to research something, they can come to the Springfield Library and access that without having to pay the subscription.
Yes, that is correct. And we also, part of the interlibrary loan process is if it's not digitally available, we can research and find out who has a copy of it in hard copy format and request a copy of that be sent to us.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Hi, I'm Jack McGee, the government affairs reporter at the Springfield Daily Citizen. I grew up in the Springfield area, lived in Greene County my whole life, Willard specifically, then moved to Springfield a few years ago where I attended college. I've been with the Springfield Daily Citizen since I graduated here at Missouri State University in 2022, which was the year the Daily Citizen launched. Started as an intern and been here ever since. My days don't always look the same, but often I attend government meetings and speak with a lot of our local government officials and comb through various government documents to find stories that the public should know about. It's important that our readers know about what's going on in their local community and how their tax dollars are being spent. The most rewarding part of my job is just the opportunity to learn something new every day, something I didn't know the day before, and being able to share that with our readers and the public.
So in the last several years, with the advent of the internet, I guess several, it's probably 30 years now or something, a lot of people are reading books on electronic devices.
Absolutely.
And that's expensive. I take advantage of that frequently. The app, I'm not promoting anything, but it's the one most libraries use, is called Libby.
Yes. And
I take advantage of that. But that's pretty expensive for the library to support, isn't it? Can you tell our listeners why?
Most people think of Amazon's ability to buy ebooks from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And usually those are in the $3 to $5 to $10 range. Whenever you try to sell to a library, when publishers sell to a library, they do not want to do the same model that they do with books, which is, here, we will sell you a copy of this book. You can put it on yourself, and as many people who want to use it can use it, and you never pay another charge for it. What publishers want to do with ebook content is allow you to subscribe to it. So every year we pay a subscription fee for access to that content. Or they want to sell you access to that book for a certain number of uses. So for example, we might buy a book and pay for a license for 25 or 30 checkouts, and then we have to buy that license again once we reach that limit. Whereas the book on the shelf, we might check that book out several hundred times. And we can give you specific examples of, we bought a book, cost us $27, it's been checked out 150 times. We bought the same ebook and we paid $100 for that ebook, and it was checked out 25 times, and we had to pay another $100. Okay, so the publishers are driving how we can acquire ebook content, and their business model is to make money.
Well, of course.
Of course. And so the impact on libraries is we pay a higher price for e-content than the individual user pays, and then we may have to pay for that content multiple times before the book is no longer, until we no longer have a need to circulate that book.
So if I understand the arithmetic involved there, the library's got to make a strategic decision. Mm-hmm. You could buy a hard copy here of a book and for $30 and people can check it out for the next 100 years.
Yes.
Or with that model, you could have a heck of a lot more books, or because a lot of people want to read on their Kindle, mm-hmm. You would have fewer books, but they're more easily, it's more convenient for the reader.
Could be, yes.
So how do you achieve the right balance?
It's hard to really come to a balance of what do we buy in hard copy format versus ebook format. Some people, they only want to read a print copy book. Some people, they only want to read an ebook or listen to a book. And some people are good with either format. So we have to look at a multitude of factors as to decide which format do we buy it in. If we're seeing a print book that is being heavily used, then that's a good key indicator for us. If we buy it in ebook format, it will be heavily used as well. The reality is most people enjoy reading when they are doing research or trying to learn something. They prefer the print book. When they're doing leisure reading and are just trying to entertain themselves, they prefer the ebook. My dissertation research was on that topic. That's why I know that's the reality. And what we found when I did my research, what I found was most people will engage in an ebook if you force them to. If that's the only thing they have, they will use an ebook. But most people have a preference towards a print book for using when they're doing research or learning in depth. They prefer the print in their hands. If they're interested in just doing leisure reading and enjoying their time, an ebook is preferred by many. So,
it's too bad. I looked the other day. I've got like 800 ebooks that I've downloaded and read over several years. I hardly ever read a book twice. It's too bad I can't donate it to the library. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that Barnes & Noble and Amazon would have an issue with that. But.
Oh, you bet you they would.
Okay, well, let's move on to some other things. What about you get about 90% of your dollars from public sources. As I said at the introduction, your budgets or your revenues are about $19 million. Is that adequate for a town our size?
Is it adequate? It's sufficient for right now, but as we are moving forward into the future, it's not sufficient. We know that the price of content, so digital content and even print content, continues to rise at a pretty significant level. We have projects that are ongoing right now. So we have 3 projects that we're in the, when I say projects, I mean building projects.
Brick and mortar.
And we're probably going to either, we're trying to raise money for those, so donations to meet that need to pay for those expenses. But we'll probably wind up at some point having to decide whether we want to take out loans to finally fund all of those expenses.
Might have to bond part of the project.
Might have to bond part of the project. Might have to just simply straightforwardly borrow money against the projects. And we haven't made that decision yet. And so we just know that those are potentials. With that in mind, we know that our future expenses are going to increase. The Senate Bill 190 that has allowed senior citizens to freeze their assessment values.
Now go easy, Ed. I signed up for that.
I did too. So, okay. There's nothing wrong with seniors taking advantage of that opportunity for themselves. I would encourage them to do that. But
it does cut into your revenue.
It does cut into our revenue, and we'll have to, at some point, figure out a way to offset the loss of that revenue. The real challenge is nobody knows what the impact is going to be totally. It could be a few $100,000. It could be $1 million or $2 million. We don't know. So at some point, we're probably going to have to think about increasing the tax levy rate or requesting that the citizens consider that.
Well, it hasn't been raised for, 20 years?
20 years, yes. We have not made that decision.
You want to make sure, get that clear.
Yeah, we have not made that decision, and we're not sure when we would make that decision, but it's a potential.
Well, aren't there some other revenue sources, like maybe you rent out some of the meeting room space?
We're looking at that. So one of the projects that we have in the works right now at the Library Center is building a new auditorium, a 500-seat auditorium. And that space is going to be heavily used, and we know it will be heavily used. It's one of the few places in Springfield where you could have 500 people in one space at a time. Mm-hmm. And on the south side of Springfield, we'll be the only place where you can do that.
What about rock concerts?
Well, I don't think rock concerts would want to use our venue because it's not large enough.
Okay.
Okay. However, right now, the way our policy is that you have to be a community group or an individual to use our meeting spaces. We're looking at revising that and allowing institutions to rent the space.
So you've got that project underway, and tell us about what's happening at the Midtown branch, Carnegie branch, and also at Republic.
At Midtown's one of those infrastructure projects that we have ongoing, where the HVAC system was put in the early 2000s, and it was already we took it out of another building and put it there.
Oh.
Okay, so it's a retrofit. It never worked well, and so we're replacing the HVAC system. And then we had some issues with ADA compliance access into the building, and so we're building a new system for ADA compliance so people can get to each one of the floors of the building who need accessibility assistance. So that's the project there. We're also redoing some of the water, sewer systems, and connections into the building.
It's a gorgeous old building.
It is.
It's right there on Central. I always appreciate what Andrew Carnegie did when he gave the money to the city to build that.
Yeah, so the challenge for us is this is a infrastructure project at Midtown, and that building actually needs some renovation. Not renovation, but restoration work done. So I think the challenge for us is that when people walk into the building when we open it back up in March or April, because that's the time frame that we're looking, that they're going to look at it and go, oh, you made a little change here, but everything else seems the same. And so I think people are going to be a little bit questioning about why did we close for so many months to do what?
Yeah.
You know, that's a challenge for us there. But the reality is when we
something you almost were forced to do, though.
Well, when we open it back up and you're not cold in the winter and hot in the summer, you'll realize, oh, you guys did do something. Okay.
And what about what's happening at Republic?
Republic is a branch library that's about 12,000 square feet right now. It's undersized for the community, and so we're doubling the size to about 22,000 square feet and adding a business center into the facility.
Now, you were talking, or there was some talk about maybe moving to a new location. Is that off the table now?
Yes, it is off the table. As we looked at the new location and where we currently are, where we currently are is really centrally located for the population that would currently be using the facility. So we want to stay where they are. As Republic grows, we probably will wind up needing another facility in a different location. That's down in the future, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the stars got aligned and everything clicks the way that you hope it would, how would the library and the library system be different 5 or 10 years from now than what it is today?
You know, it's easier to talk about what would we want to look like 5 years from now.
Fair enough.
What we want to look like is really what we do right now, only more of. Okay, so here's the thought process. We want to meet our constituents' needs. So we want to provide information, resources, a facility that people come in and use because it helps them to mature and grow as an individual, to learn, to interact with information. That's not going to change for libraries. That's what we do. How we do it may change. Where we do it may change. So when I say how we do it, it's, we'll be doing more digital and more digital, more digital. So we acknowledge that libraries are digital and that a lot of people are interacting with those digital assets that we have and are asking for us to provide more. That will be a new, not new, but just improving and increasing responsibility in our role to meet people's needs to learn and grow and educate themselves.
If somebody were to ask themselves, I wonder if the library provides this service or that service, maybe passports, for example, whom should they call?
Well, they can actually go to our website, and they'll find most of that information freely available on our website, and they can learn quickly from that. It's thelibrarycenter.org, and
Okay.
so they could go there. They can call any one of the branch libraries. They can call the central library. There's a number on our website. Go out, find our phone number, call the branch that's closest to you, call any one of the branches, and they will help you.
I just like to make a side observation. In my experience, the people on the service desk or the folks I end up talking to over the phone are always very polite and helpful. And it encourages you to continue to interact with them.
Mm-hmm. Our desire is that everybody that walks in the door feels like they walked into their home.
I like that. That's a nice way to say it. We're close to the end of our time. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you about you'd like to tell our listeners?
I can't think of anything.
Well, if it comes to you, we'll do a second podcast one of these days.
That'd be great. Well, I'd appreciate that.
Dr. Ed Walton, thank you for being our guest today on In Our Town.
Thank you.
That's it for this week, and many thanks for listening. If you'd like to listen to other episodes, you can visit the Springfield Daily Citizen website at sgfcitizen.org/In Our Town, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.